Hello, my speakers. How you doing?
Hi, Amara. Hi, guys. How's everyone doing?
Is his voice very deep? So it's quite an honor to have you guys join us for this session. And for us to start, I want to ask one question. So the first question I want to ask, I'm very curious, right? If you're being given $1 million right now to build a product that would solve an actual problem, or you think a problem that you think that it's very pressing right now in the African ecosystem, what would that be?
So, I would say payments is a thing, right? But before that, right, I've already been given a couple $1 million to build something as 2022, right? But it was very, very obvious quickly that payments in Africa is still a very, very broken experience. We've tried to solve it in the fintech with fintechs, right? But Web3, in this case, stablecoins has provided a new rail. Africa is not trading with Africa. That is a problem, right? Europe is trading with Europe. America is trading with America. Asia trades with Asia, but Africa doesn't trade with Asia, right? So if I would say, which is what I'm solving today is payments.
Thank you so much for that. Is that what you do also do at Stabio too?
Yes, that's what I do as stable.
Oh, a round of applause for him too. So Mona, can we have you too?
Um, it sounds like a broken conversation or a broken record right now to talk about payments, but payments is a huge problem when it comes to Africa. I would say, allow me to answer that in two ways. I'll say yes. One is payment, but I'm looking at it less about Africa trading to Africa and more about the friction of crypto to transaction, right? How many of us use crypto here? Great. So you want to use crypto to make payment currently wherever you are. What you have to do is go on whatever platform and do a P2P transaction, and then you onboard to your bank account, and then you make the payment. There is still a friction as opposed to just maybe using your card or transactions. I will probably be looking into solutions that solve that friction or shortens that process. That's one. But two, what I do in my line of work as a development manager is actually founder support. A lot of what I do is growth and founder support. And I think Africa has such an amazing product. I talk to founders every day, almost every day, and they have such great minds, amazing product. But especially in Web3, there's a very a lack of support. And I'm not talking about money now. Money is a problem, but I'm also talking about the fact that a lot of our founders are first time founders or second time founders, right? And there's no support. The VCs are just investing money, especially when you're using like Western VCs, right? Everybody's there for the bag, which I don't blame anybody. But at the same time, I want investors and VCs and founder support that is African, where we're not just caring about making money, we care about this product and we care about seeing the success of the product. So I think if I'm not doing payments, that's one thing I'll be looking into. Doesn't sound like a product, but that's the one thing I'll be looking into. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mona. And David, let's have you too.
All right. So I wanted to say payment too, but
Seems like everybody.
it will become a problem if you all say the same thing, right?
Yeah.
Because it's true that we have many payment solutions, but it's like bits and pieces everywhere. So there's no granular product that I wouldn't say product, right? Service that kind of solves all the problems at once. But for me, I would say talent gap, like she said too about founders. And the thing is, first of all, in the Africa ecosystem, one thing I've seen like really evidently is we are trying to break off the consumer mindset. How that we, for example, if Instagram launches, definitely that's launched, people are thinking, oh, how do I use it for something that is for personal use, consumable use? But there are other levels to it. So I'm talking about infrastructure level products. So for example, I think it's the first Africa bridge that Hyperbridge did, for example. That's what they did in the Web3 ecosystem. And there are more things to do. For example, think about AI. People are thinking about how to use AI to build product. That's still a base level. I spoke about this a while ago on how that you could actually build decentralized AI agents. And that's one thing that I think it will start becoming mainstream. We have companies that are having like AI marketplace, Web3 AI marketplace. And I think that we need to think deeper when it comes to building products. So I would say that we need to have systems in place that would actually support builders, founders in the ecosystem, so that we can actually build great products that other products then are built upon. Think about a platform and different structures. There are chairs in the building, for example, but what really makes everything so, it's the foundation. And if you could build products that are actually foundational level, we'll see people coming to Africa, trying to support what we are doing and export it out there, instead of the other way around. People build on hype. It's good sometimes for the money, but I think it should not stop there. It can start there if there's a profitability margin, right? But think about it that it should not end there. And I think that's also one issue when it comes to people. They become comfortable very easily. I'm like, okay, I've made money and that's all. But we need to keep solving problems. And if we solve our own problems, I would say we make a bolder statement for others to also solve problems. So it becomes a ripple effect. I've seen where people bypass systems to get things done. It can work for that specific need. But the truth is that on a longer term, on a longer scale, it becomes a problem. I say this, whatever you would do that would pay you now, it's more damaging to your life than whatever you would do that will pay you in the future. So we should think that way. What products can we build? What infrastructure level can we build? Think about, for example, in AI, we have data gaps in the Africa ecosystem. Using models can be biased, but think about how we could have more streamlined data categories in Africa. We are doing amazing stuff as builders and beyond that, because other people then on come to build on top of what we've done. So that's just my thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you so much, David. A round of applause for him, please. So I think one thing that we've actually established is the fact that we have a payment problem in Africa. But I think recently we've seen a lot of builders building incredible products to solve that. We have the likes of users are Paycrest and all of that. And I also love what Muna said about support. I think it's one thing I was discussing with a friend back in Rwanda a few weeks ago. We were talking about how the VCs come and invest in products here in Africa, but then the builders that they are actually funding, most of them are, just like Muna said, most of them are actually first-time founders. So they also need support, guiding them on how they're supposed to go along with their product. And I think as we go deeper, we'll get to explain more of that. So thank you so much, my speakers. And for our first question, I want to ask, what do you think is the current state of Web3 adoption in Africa at the moment?
I'm sure almost everyone in this room has one way or the other interacted with a cryptocurrency, right? So in the speculative part of the assets, I would say we have a broad adoption, right? But when it comes to like the protocol aspect of really building useful utilities, we are still way below, right? Our friends in Asia are really doing what we should be doing, right? So I would say in terms of trading the assets, we are up there. But in terms of actually building useful utilities for the assets, we are not.
Sorry, come again. In terms
of trading, we are up there, right? And like Nigeria is like number 3 in the world in terms of like volume, right?
Okay.
But in terms of actually building useful utilities that this interesting technology powers, we are still taking baby steps.
Okay, I agree with that. Mona?
I mean, I would say Nigeria, let's start from Nigeria. Crypto adoption is great. Web3 adoption, not so much. And even with crypto adoption, there's this thing that happens to people who are in the Web3 space. We have a tunnel vision. What we can see is exactly what we interact with. If you zoom out, you realize that not the percentage of people you think know crypto, use crypto, interact with crypto is way less than what you actually think. And that's in this country. Now, if you want to say the broader Africa, I've had the opportunity to speak with people in several countries in Africa, interact with them, and I would say the adoption is not as we think. It's way, way slimmer. Because you go to countries like Rwanda, you go to countries like even Kenya, that's supposed to be a great hub for Web3, and you realize it's the same thing. It's a tunnel vision. The people in the industry are talking about it, they're doing events, they're interacting, But the users, and I would like to say this here, the only way a technology would be globally or even like worldwide spread or get better adoption is if I can use it without having to be an expert in that technology. That's the only way. The only way Web3 or crypto will get this big adoption we're talking about is if people can use it without having to know what blockchain technology and dApps, I mean, come on, and ZK and all of that. And the truth is, we're not there yet. We're so far from there. And the reason why I'm saying this is so that we know that there's a lot more work to be done. There's a lot more onboarding to be done. There's a lot more education to be done. And even in our creating of products, there's a lot more thinking to the user experience that has to be done, where we're not giving people courses to use our products, but instead we're giving them products that they can use because it's useful in their day-to-day activity. So when it comes to adoption, honestly, we're not there yet. We're so far from there.
I love the fact that you actually had to talk about crypto adoption, because I feel like a lot of people have this misconception that when you speak about Web3, their first instinct goes to crypto. So, yeah, we can see a lot of people are using crypto, but Web3. But I love that. Thank you so much, Mona. David?
Yeah, so I'm going to support what my other speakers said regarding adoption because, so for Africa, one thing that I've seen evidently, I mean, I've been to many parts of the continent. I've spoken to key people, and one thing that I've seen is sometimes we always tend to lean to the vibe per season. So, for example, when we have NFTs, we saw people leaning towards NFTs, then it became abused. Sorry to say that, but it became abused because people thought that it's a way to get money very fast. But it's actually creators trying to bring their creation to life, and people can actually see that. And, so, but that's just for that. So people tend to lean to one side, oh, it's just crypto trading. So, and I think that is the part where environment comes in, right? And user experience, like she said, because I say this to my team, for example, that you can have, I don't know who has watched Silicon Valley here. Good, right? So Richard Hendricks built an amazing product, crazy software. He built his own algorithm. Wise Man score was top of the roof, but he was just sharing it among his friends to collect feedbacks. So there was no real product market fit. So meaning that people did not understand it. Now in Africa, globally, basically we have many products, and people always have to move from product to product, different learning curve, and it's crazy. I've seen what other companies are doing, for example, leveraging existing user experiences to build products for fintech, like for payment solutions. So I think even though AI goes, Web3 goes, and all of these things moves, like we have different levels of cadence of advancements in the tech, we cannot trade off user experience to increase adoption. Now, it doesn't just stop with what we see with product designers doing. That's just one level. Even when it comes to events, too, for example, we need to create an environment for ourselves that we are able to do like post-community engagement, have stuff that would build us up locally. That's the way we can actually export what we've learned and grow as well. Personally, I've grown effectively by being in the right room, in the right environment. And I think that also helps to increase adoption. So if you could create the right environment for Web3 and not just lean to one side, not just lean to trading or lean to DeFi, right? But actually build strong communities that are actually doing amazing stuff. We would see people coming to this space and they're not confused because they will look at where they actually fit in and fit in perfectly. And they will do amazing stuff. People have crazy ideas, or people have amazing talent. People have amazing uniqueness that would, if they had to a product, you would see it come to life and you'd be amazed and be shocked. So that's what I think. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, David. Now, I'm going to be asking this question. You mentioned a couple of products. So can you give examples of products or projects that are currently delivering tangible value in the African ecosystem right now?
There's so many. So I don't want to lean to one side. Now, this doesn't mean that other products are not doing amazingly well, right? I would just
Just
say
some. Just we don't you
just
don't
some.
have to mention everyone. Okay.
No one's like a politician. But I would just say, maybe based on my current use, I use Onboard a lot for
Okay.
payments. I use Hazard too a lot because they're leveraging existing UI to, and do payments, off ramping and all of those stuff. Then I think if I'm going to add one more, MetaMask now.
Okay. How many of us use MetaMask here? Wow. Okay. Thank you so much, David. Mona, can you list I know we have, according to statistics, it shows that Africa, a lot of African countries are leading crypto adoption, Web3 actually. So, can you list the different regions in Africa that are leading the way in African Web3 adoption?
Oh wow. I'd say Nigeria first of all.
Okay.
Uh, and that's not me being biased. I can be backed. I can be backed by numbers. I would also say Kenya. Kenya is really there. I'd say Ghana. Wow, that's two West African countries. I'd also say Rwanda because I was just there recently, and they seem to have like an openness to crypto and a lot of people using the technology. I'll say South Africa as well, because I have spoken to a couple of founders from there too. I'm trying to remember. I think those are the ones. Oh, Mauritius, actually. Yes. I think Trust is here. They have the African Bitcoin conference in December. Amazing community, actually. So those are the ones I can remember. Crypto Africa is very open. I like to say this. Crypto or blockchain technology is really a great solution for a lot of African problems. So Africa is very poised for the solution. It's just how we are going to utilize it to solve those problems and actually educate people to use them to solve those problems. So there are a lot of countries.
Thank you so much, Mona. Michael, in the Web3 ecosystem, we can't do without communities. Communities are more like the backbone of the Web3 ecosystem. So what role do they play in shaping sustainable Web3 adoption across the continent?
All right, so community. We all here have trying to community. DevFest is a community, right? So it's been here for a while. With that community, there is no really growth because community is where information actually being spread. So everybody here in this panel, both those who have tried Web3 or used bought their first cryptocurrency, used the lending protocol, right? For those who have not used it, they learn through community. So I believe that community is one of the best because in a community, you find like-minded people, right? You get contagious energy. I think for me, I didn't get into crypto through community, but when I joined a couple communities, right, I saw the energy in those communities. It was contagious. Even for friends, family, the first place I always send them is community. I say, go to this community, absorb as much information as possible, ask questions. You won't feel stupid. There are a lot of kind people in those communities. They always come back to me telling me that, oh, they are happy that they joined the community. They were able to learn better. They didn't feel like they were stupid, right? Which is very, very important. Adoption community. Any product, anything in the world, you see brands building communities, right? They call it differently. You call it marketing, you call it sales, but it's still community building. You're going out there, you're spreading the word, you're putting a bunch of like-minded people, right, who share the same vision, right? That is one of the best ways to actually spread things. So, community, really.
Thank you so much for that. In Web3, community is one thing and collaboration is another thing. Now, speaking to you, Mona, collaboration seems very critical between builders and regulators in Africa. So how do you see this working effectively in pushing Web3 adoption in Africa?
Between builders and regulation.
Regulators, yeah.
Ooh, okay. A lot of builders that I talk to are very scared of regulation. I recently had an event where we had SEC in the building, and I had a conversation with him. And one of the things he said to me was, "You guys don't talk to us." And I'm like, "Yeah, because you guys are scary. You know, you guys are scary." And that is the state of the market right now. A lot of builders are scared to speak to SEC, to speak to regulation and compliance. And a lot of users don't even know what they need to build in terms of regulation and compliance. And the people themselves, the regulators themselves, do not understand the industry. It is very hard to create laws and rules for an industry you don't understand. And the only way they can understand is if we speak to them. And the only way we're going to speak to them if they are not so scary. Can you see the impasse we're at now? So they're so scary, we're not talking to them. And they are so uneducated about the industry because we're not talking to them. Now, this is where collaboration comes upon us. As I like to call, there's a set of people that should be in the middle. Not necessarily founders, right? People that support founders, community builders, event leads, business development managers, compliance people. There are a lot of compliance lawyers in crypto space. I've spoken to some of them. Have these conversations. Sit down with them. They're open right now, right? Because everybody is seeing the numbers, and this company is bringing $50 million in transaction. This one. Everybody's seeing the numbers, and everybody's like, okay, you know what? We're interested in this industry right now. If we don't have conversations, if we don't put somebody in the room, if we don't put people, key people, knowledgeable people in the room, they will come out with laws and you have no excuse to not follow them. You come out with laws and you have no choice but to follow them. So we need to have a lot more people having this conversation. We need to have a lot more, we're very, especially in Nigeria, I can talk for Nigeria especially, the SEC office is very open right now.
Sure.
I personally have interacted with them over the past couple months. There's a dance to it, right? There's a dance to it. Obviously, they don't really understand. There's a dance to it. But if you can, dance well, you get the conversations happening. They're very open to it. Builders need to start having that conversation. Builders need to be like, hey, what's up? We're building this thing. It's not a crime. You're not doing anything illegal. So I don't see why you're running. We're building the stuff. We're looking to build the stuff. What do we need to do for compliance? They will have a conversation with you and tell you what they think you need to do for compliance. You can have a conversation with them as to what you can do. And then there's that middle ground that we find, right? Especially for non-custodial. And I know right now, there are different compliance requirements if you're a non-custodial app or wallet as to when you're, they have those. But you can't know that until you start having conversations. And that's where this is important. Have those conversations, get into the room, meet them. When you come for events, you see these people there and you're hush-hush about it. And then they come out one day and you're like, oh my God, this is terrible. Well, yeah, you didn't say anything. So you have to be able to, builders need to be able to speak to these people, and they're also very willing to listen. As community members, because I am not a founder, as community members ourselves, we could also help, have that conversation as well. If you're a community leader, you can, when you have events, a lot of them have been bringing the SEC into their events. It's nice to have them speak, but when you go into the room, you be like, hey, what's up? Let's have a conversation. Alpha, this, you talk to them. And that's the only way this would work. Because right now, it's more of a lion and prey dance that we're doing, where they're coming and we're like, oh my God, they're coming. But if we start having more conversation, I think they're more willing to listen and they're more willing to find the middle ground. And even for people that are looking to come into the industry, there's an opportunity there that compliance officers, I'm giving you scope. Like if you're looking to come into the industry, please become a compliance officer. Find a way, help us. There's a lot of opportunities there for everybody, but everybody has to be open to the idea to start with.
So it's time for us to start having the hard conversations and stop running away from them.
Right. Stop running away.
Thank you so much, Mona. So David, it's one thing to build a product. It's also another thing to scale the products that you're building. And scaling can actually be very tricky sometimes. So what practical strategies can innovators use to scale Web3 solutions responsibly in Africa?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question because for the sake of, so let me start like this. Sometimes for the sake of MVP, we miss out on scaling from the ground up when it comes to building products. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work. But I think the strategy to put in place when it comes to scaling a product is actually, I'll take it a different route, right? And I'll say why. Is actually partnering with teams that are going to build that product from ground up. Let me explain. You could decide to build a product and have like a 2-man, 3-man team and build a product, right? You are going to fully on board, full time building that product and you scale it, right? But you hit like roadblocks and you have to look for a way to unblock. But there's this new thing that I've seen that I think is actually really, really amazing to emulate is working across teams that are actually going to put a skin in the game and we all build and scale the product together. This is a more source-driven problem that people don't realize. If you think you're going to scale a product and you are, let's say for example, you want to raise money for that product and it's a product that actually cut across different global markets, I think partnering with strong team from the ground up, it could be part-time, and everybody's doing research. First thing I'll say you should do is do a lot of research. For example, she spoke about how that, SEC is open and you could ask right questions. See, when there are problems, it means that there are actually opportunities for solutions that you can provide. And I think when everybody puts their head on the table, you would see that you would even come up with more innovative solutions that you use to scale your products uniquely. I've said this before about, okay, let me go back to our traditional market and how we see companies like supermarkets, for example. We've seen a couple of them. We've seen Boku. We've seen a couple of them, Gender, and the rest of them. They are doing the same thing, but they have different strategies to scale themselves. Basically, to expand. Some leverage tools like things like expansion, multiplication, where they multiply themselves. So, for example, you would have one shop that makes 20K, and you could multiply yourself, and you could become a millionaire in 1 week. I'm just saying. So different products have different areas of attack. So I read a book called Good Strategy, Bad Strategy, and it clearly explained on how that scaling a product is beyond building multiple shells of that product. For example, look at what Steve Jobs did when he was fired from Apple. When he was to come back, people thought that he was going to come back, building more flagship products. But no, he shrink the company size to a minute focus. So many a times, you need to have like a major core competence on that product that you're going to really focus on and push that and become a master on that particular feature or that particular core or niche, whatever the case may be. And that was what Steve Jobs did, is he shrunk the company size to a very minute quantity. I mean, fired a lot of people. People cried. It's fine. You get better. But that just shows how that scaling a product is not just doing multiple things at the same time because everybody's doing it. Look for your own niche. Master it and push with full force. We've seen companies do that and they end up being approached by bigger companies that want to buy them because they've so hacked a particular solution that they've owned it. And I think scalability is in that light. So strategy is not about doing like 5,000 pipelines or strategies on how to do stuff, but it's actually look for a problem and solve it. What problem are you solving is how you scale a product. You cannot say you want to do many things and forget the elephant in the elevator. That's a bigger problem to attack. So I think when it comes to scaling a product, partnership is very important and everybody should do research because partnership is very important because everybody has a skin in the game. You can say, oh, I want to have all the shares. But the truth is that you cannot have all the shares and not even make a pen. So partnership is very important. Look for strong people, like-minded people that would build a product together. Everybody should have a skin in the game. It could be part-time. And you'll be shocked in a year, 2 years, you are building an amazing solution that people want to buy from your hand. They're like, I want to buy this. What check size can I write to buy it off from your hand? So that's what I think.
Thank you so much, David. Michael, okay, I would like you to answer that question in a different light.
I want to add something.
Yeah, I wanted to answer that in a different light. Okay, so speaking of scaling, now what are the biggest challenges African Web3 projects face when trying to grow?
Yes, so I would say number one is lack of access to partnership. So at my previous company, at Ishri Labs, we built a product called Gamic. We grew Gamic to over 5 million plus users. Right? We had users all around the world. Now, one of the things that helped with that scaling, something that we learned early on, was with the right partnerships. Right? So in the Web3 ecosystem, we had partners from Consensus. We had partners from Polygon. We had partners from Binance. Right? So the right partnership can actually be the make and break moment for a product, right? You could build the most amazing products, but if you don't have access to the right partners, what partners do is like a vote of confidence, it's like trust, right? It's like telling the audience that, you see these guys, you see these products, we trust them, we trust the team. Automatically, people who are skeptical about trying those products automatically are open to using that product. I would say we have an unfairly bad reputation in Africa, and it's very, very unfair, right? It is very unfair. And then as Nigerians, it is way worse, right? And for those reasons, you see people having stupid bias when it comes to product built by Africans, especially Nigerians, which is why I love what my brother Sheun is doing, right, with Hyper Bridge.
Hyper Bridge.
Yeah. So I love what he's doing. Like I had a conversation with Yele a couple months back, and the conversation that while we're having a conversation, it boiled down to one thing, right? When building products, you just need to find the first 100 people that actually love what you're doing, right? With that 100 people, you can scale to 1,000, 10K, and couple million, right? Once you can find those people, you can solve their problem. You know that there are other people like them that have those problems. So finding the people who love your products, getting the right partners can be the make or break moment really for any startup.
Thank you so much for that. Mona, you spoke about collaboration between builders and regulators. So, what regulatory and infrastructural risks should founders be aware of when building, especially here in Africa?
I'm not a teacher of SEC. Okay. Right. So first of all, is if you're building in Africa, you can't do regulation later. Build first. Because when they come to lock you up, I'm not gonna be there. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You can't, and not to give a bad reputation, right? I will still go back to what I said about being uneducated about the industry. Nobody is going to hear we're non-custodial. Nobody's going to hear that. You can't do that, especially in Nigeria. Right now, where the SEC is like watching everybody and trying to be all involved. It's a good thing, which means that we can have a conversation, we can have input. But on the other hand, it then means that you don't get as much leeway as you would have had last year or last 2 years, where you could be building, you could be launching, you could be doing all your activations, and nobody really cares, right? And you can say, I will do the compliance and regulation and registration later. Right now, you have to have that in your forefront. I would say as a founder, especially if you're building in Africa and if you're building starting Nigeria, I would say first things first is make sure you have somebody on your team or somebody that you're consulting with that understand compliance and regulation in the continent and in the ecosystem and in the country. It's very important. Have that person as your right-hand man, right? So that whenever you're doing anything, you can have conversations with that person and have that. Aside from that, I would also say educate yourself on what the compliance requirements are for your particular product. Educate yourselves on what you need. Because ignorance is not an excuse in the law. They can claim ignorance of the industry. We don't get to claim ignorance of their laws. So I would say that is one. And also, what would I say? I mean, it's the same thing if you're building any traditional product, right? A little bit more careful, but the same thing. Have a lawyer, have your compliance officer or somebody that, is into compliance by your side. Make sure you're doing all your registrations right. And pray to God. I'm joking. But yeah, like just make sure your books are, checked.
Thank you so much. Thank you,
eyes are
Mona.
dotted.
So the last question for all my speakers, what do you think will define the next phase of Web3 in Africa? Let's start with you, Michael.
Utility.
Okay.
Right. Web3 has shown usefulness. Stablecoins have found product market fit. Technology has shown scalability. I mean, lending market today is a thing, right? So I can borrow easily on Aave, on Morpho, right? We've solved most of those problems. Now, the next thing is how do we bring this utility into the real world, right? So that would define the next evolution of Web3. You could see a lot of investment, a lot of growth happening, naturally transforming business activities, transforming money movement with like stablecoins, simplifying the process, removing a bunch of these middlemen, right? So something I would just say normally shouldn't have come now, but by first quarter of next year, we'll be launching a product. And with that product, we are currently in advanced integration with most of the POS networks. So you could really walk into any of the chains and pay with your stablecoin.
It's stable.
Stablecoin in Nigeria. Yeah.
So what's the name of the product? Would you want to mention
No, I
that?
won't mention it.
Okay, okay.
Well,
We're
for
looking
first
for.
quarter of next year, you could walk into any scene, and among the options, whereby you have pay with bank transfer, pay with card, you have pay with crypto directly.
All right.
So, real world utility to me is like the last step. Once we can do that, then we can start abstracting away the technology, right? The name, and it's just like any other tech out there. As an engineer, right? Technology is a means to an end, right? So you pick the stack, you solve the problem with that stack. Nobody needs to know about the stack, right? That is really the end.
Thank you so much. Mona, briefly, please.
I think that utility is very important. I would just expand on that to say utility that doesn't look like crypto, like you said. Products that make your life easier without having to understand the technology is one. Secondly, I would say infrastructure. Block Radar is such an amazing product. People do not realize it's behind a lot of products that you're seeing that's doing payment infrastructure right now has Block Radar underneath it. That is why you don't have to know about Block Radar, but you're using Block Radar. So I think that is also like infrastructure and tools are going to be such a huge turning end for crypto in Africa, especially. And that then goes to growth and all of that. So it's going to be a mix of infrastructure growth, which also is like utility, but then utility that makes sense, utility that I can use, my mother can use without understanding what Web3 and crypto is.
Thank you, Mona. And David?
Yeah, for me, I think what I'm going to be seeing is more Africa problem solving products, meaning that product are actually solving Africans' problem. That's one. Two, we're going to see more of partnerships. Now, this is going to be it's going to cut across private sector partnerships with private public sector partnerships. Products partnering with different government bodies, and they are setting up initiatives to support products to actually thrive. One thing I want to see is actually blockchain and Web3 thoughts in syllabus in different nations, basically in Africa. It's really going to make people know that you can actually be part of this now, and get a very good headway before time goes, or before you miss out, basically. So we're going to see more of partnerships and more of Africa problem solving products.
Thank you so much, David. A round of applause for the speakers, please. So we are going to be taking questions now. Oh, okay.
You said something about AI being biased for Africans. Is there any solution for that? Can you build a solution for training AIs to not be biased towards Africans? Thank you.
Yeah, okay. Because of time, real quick, there is a particular product called Gaia Network. They are building like a marketplace for decentralized AI. So many people can launch models or build what's it called AI agents on the marketplace, in their marketplace. So what that means for us is for AI not to be biased is lack of data, real data from here, Africa itself. What we see, because we don't know how this model is actually trained. We don't know how the pipeline for that training in those private sectors. So it's very hard to basically, it's not their fault, basically. It's very hard for them to be able to get real data. But one thing that we could do is add the thought process before about this is actually having just the way you actually have to validate transactions on blockchain, actually validates the authenticity of a model doing what it was said it's going to do. Hallucination for AI model does not actually mean that it's tipsy. No, it actually means that it's actually saying something that is wrong and almost saying that it is right. So the word hallucination is a bit lenient for what that means, but that's what actually is going on. So basically, it doesn't have access to that information, and it just based on patterns, cook up solution for you, and it's actually very wrong. So there is a longer discussion, but I think people are actually doing stuff around that, and I think one of the ways to do it easier is through blockchain. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thanks so much, David. And thank you, everyone, for listening. And I hope that we've established an understanding on how Web3 adoption is going currently in the ecosystem. So I'm looking forward to, if you're not yet in the Web3 ecosystem, I'm looking forward to having you. And if you're already here and you're building something, please build a product that Africans can use, that people can actually use, and that way you get the support you need. Thank you so much.